Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this video. My name is Caleb Rothy. I'm the Percussion Education Coordinator for WGI, and I'm joined by John Mapes. John, hello.
How's it going?
What we thought we would do is get together and kind of do an ongoing series where we talk about show planning and production timelines and all sorts of things like that. The idea here is we're really trying to give you and your ensemble a bit of a competitive edge. And so this is something John and I have been talking about for years, and we're actually going to do it now. I think there's nobody better to talk about this than John. I will tell you, John and I used to have groups compete against each other way back in the day when we were first getting started. And I was always so impressed and a little envious at just how well prepared his groups were. And I always tried to emulate that and try to get a little bit more on top of the ball. So John's going to share with us some of that knowledge and insight as we talk about putting together shows and what you can do to give your group an advantage starting. Now, I want to give a disclaimer before we get going here. There is certainly no one way to put together a show. So what we're going to talk about is what works for John and kind of his years of experience, and you can take that for what it's worth. Everybody may have different timelines. Every program is unique. Every program has different things going on and things that are happening in their calendar, but you can use this at least as a little bit of a rough guideline of maybe some goalposts and some things that you want to do within your own program to give your students the best experience possible. So John, let's get started. And my first question for you is, when does the process of indoor percussion really begin for you?
Right. Well, first of all, I'm really glad we're doing this. For real, we've been talking about this for a couple of years. And the thing is, we usually talk about this somewhere in mid to late March. And it's usually at an SCPA show. And we're like people are behind. And, so we're seeing it in our local circuit. And I'm also seeing it through my company. I do a lot of consulting with groups. So it's not just like my own ensembles. I'm watching a lot of A&O groups sort of going through the process. And I'm always like a little bit caught off guard with their schedules. Because to me, it almost feels obvious, I guess. And it's not. It's definitely not obvious. I've been doing this for 20 something years. So, there's certain things that I make sure I have lined up. So these things are really important. I love talking about this stuff. I'm glad we're doing it. So we have to start at the beginning, and we kind of joke about this, but the only way we can start indoor on time is we have to get our fall writing done on time, right?
Of course.
And that seems obvious, right? But it's like, that'll be a thing. So, we make sure, I think a good goal is you obviously want to be done with your writing as soon as possible. Realistically, in July is a really good goal. I think sometimes that gets into August, depending on who's writing the wind stuff and all the things. But personally, I'm thinking about shows in the summer, but I think things get serious in August. August is like, okay, I'm wrapping up my fall writing. I'm getting through band camps. That's a very intense time, but I'm thinking a little bit of like, well, what do I think I want to do this year with my group? And it's a casual thing. I'm not making outlines, and I'm not like writing music. Even if I'm done with fall, there's a little bit of a break in there. And there's just sort of like, okay, let's start putting together some ideas together in the month of August for sure.
So as you're starting those conversations and getting ideas together in August, you're not writing anything in August yet, right?
Right.
Definitely. Okay. So for indoor, that kind of then moves us into September. John, what are some of the things that you're trying to get done in September? What's happening in your own production timelines? And again, this is for the groups that you work with, but also the groups that you consult with in Open, and World. So like this timeline works regardless of what class you're in. John, what are you working on in September?
Right. September is like the biggest planning month. I like to, basically, I feel like we got to get serious about deciding what our show is going to be. That's like number one. And then, of course, start picking music and all those things. So sometimes it's not, I would say, actually, it's not typically like a full staff meeting and we're sitting down. It's usually more casual, like a phone call, like, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Or a little text like, hey, I saw this video. Do you like this song? And sometimes it's some of those things. You're like, okay, I have like these 3 different show ideas. And it's usually whoever. So usually I'll be talking with a visual person and a front ensemble person. And it's usually about 3 of us sort of like throwing some ideas around based off sort of like, what did we do last year and the year before? Where do we want to go this next year? And sort of those decisions of like what this year's show is going to be. And ideally all that's happening in September because it gives you a little freedom. Like this year, we're currently in this stage right now, and I actually changed my mind. Like all summer, I thought I was going to be doing a certain show with my high school, and then I've changed it kind of a good amount actually. And that's through some of the conversations I'm able to have and pick up a phone like, hey, I was thinking about it. Maybe it's not that music. And if it's not that music, maybe it's not this. And, you know, all the different things. And I was like, oh, I'm looking at kind of a different show now.
So in September, is there anything else that you're doing other than kind of honing in on a show concept? Or would you say that's the key thing to get accomplished in September?
It's show concept. It's ideally we're picking music. We're listening to songs. We're looking at potentially like even just like, what's our floor? What's our props? Like what's the look of the set, right? Because all these things are really combined. It's I think we've moved on from the days of like we picked a song, you know, and we'll figure it out later. It's like that's not really how it works. And like so this is like basically like you're putting together like an outline, like or not really an outline, like a document, right? And it's a shared document. So it's like here's some art I found. Here's a couple images, might be a floor. Here's some prop ideas. Here's YouTube links. Like here's all this stuff, and everybody has this document, you know. And then it's typically like, hey, I updated it, you know, or like we'll have a conversation like, hey, can you update that? That was really good. Can you put that so that the visual guy can see what you just said? You know, those sort of things. We're sort of building it in a document because we're trying to get ready to start the actual music writing process, because obviously that is first.
Perfect. All right. That sounds like a good set of goals for kind of August, get those conversations going, and then September, lock in on that concept and start pulling together resources. So we're not brainstorming what the show is going to be about, but we're trying to brainstorm what goes into the show, music ideas, effect ideas that are going to be in the program. Could be prop, costume, whatever. Pull all that stuff together. And then that'll kind of set you up for October. And John, that's what we'll talk about next.